For years, Iran's Revolutionary Guard commanders openly mocked American missile defense, calling their arsenal of over 3,000 ballistic missiles the one force capable of overwhelming any shield Washington could deploy. On February 28, 2026, Operation Epic Fury called that bluff. Iran fired back 31 missiles toward U.S. and allied bases across 6 countries. The result? 0 American military deaths. What failed that night wasn't just a salvo. It was a 47-year doctrine, and the story of how it was built reveals exactly why it collapsed. Iran's missile arsenal did not appear overnight. It was built methodically over decades through war, embargo, and a relentless drive for self-reliance. The first Scud-B missiles arrived in 1984, smuggled from Libya during the Iran-Iraq War. These early models, with a range of about 300 kilometers, gave Tehran its first taste of strategic reach. By 1998, the Shahab-3 was unveiled, a medium-range missile capable of striking Israel and U.S. bases across the Gulf. The Sajil, Iran's first solid-fuel 2-stage missile, entered the arsenal in 2008, reducing launch times and making detection harder. Each milestone marked a step away from dependence on foreign suppliers and toward a homegrown deterrent. By February 2026, independent analysts at CSYS and the International Institute for Strategic Studies agreed. Iran's stockpile had crossed 3,000 ballistic missiles. U.S. intelligence, in a briefing leaked just before Operation Epic Fury, put the figure at more than 3,000, with roughly 1,800 launch ready, and the rest in storage or awaiting refurbishment. The arsenal included over 1,200 Fateh 110 and Qatar-S short-range missiles, 900 Shahab-3 and Ghadir 110 medium-range systems, and hundreds of newer solid-fuel Sajil and Khorramshahr rockets. Satellite imagery from commercial providers confirmed hundreds of launch pads and transporter erector launchers, about 250 in active service, with dozens more concealed in hardened underground bunkers. The remainder, described by IRGC Commander Ibrahim Jabari as scrap missiles, were either obsolete or untested, pressed into service for psychological effect rather than battlefield reliability. Jabari, the senior deputy commander of the IRGC Aerospace Force, made no secret of his confidence. At a press conference in Tehran on February 28, he declared, "The first wave of retaliatory missiles we will fire are only scrap missiles. The real thunder will follow." His words echoed a doctrine honed over years, that sheer volume could saturate any defense, overwhelming even the most advanced shield the U.S. could deploy. Iranian state media boasted of rapid reload cycles, electronic warfare jamming, and the ability to launch from tunnels or mobile platforms anywhere from Kermanshah to the Persian Gulf coast. The message was clear: no base, no ship, no city in the region was beyond reach. The credibility of this threat was not just a matter of numbers. U.S. and Israeli intelligence tracked Iran's investments in redundancy and survivability. Mobile launchers that could be repositioned in hours, underground silos shielded from satellite surveillance, and a logistics network designed for quick dispersal. Commercial satellite imagery from 2024 to early 2026 showed over 300 distinct launch site footprints, with activity spiking in the weeks before the February strike. Procurement documents, leaked during a cyber attack on Iran's defense ministry, revealed orders for more than 1,000 additional Fateh 110 rockets in late 2025 alone. Yet the arsenal's true strength depended on more than raw inventory. The IRGC's public narrative, amplified by commanders like Jabari, relied on the idea that the United States and its allies could never intercept a massed salvo. The overwhelm claim was repeated in every statement, every parade, every televised exercise. It was not just a military calculation, but a political one. A defense against external attack, a bargaining chip in nuclear talks, and a symbol of national defiance. As Operation Epic Fury approached, Iran's missile force stood as both sword and shield, a vast layered stockpile ready to be tested in combat. The question was no longer whether the arsenal existed, but whether its promise would hold under fire. The answer would come not from rhetoric, but from the events of that night. February 2026 brought a visible shift in Washington's posture. The arrival of the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike groups in the Arabian Gulf signaled a readiness that went beyond deterrence. American warships, aircraft, and missile defense batteries concentrated around Bahrain, where the U.S. Fifth Fleet maintained its regional headquarters. Rear Admiral R.C. Gordon, overseeing NAVCENT and the Fifth Fleet, directed the buildup from Bahrain. Coordinating with Israeli counterparts and Gulf allies to integrate air and missile defenses across the theater. The diplomatic front unraveled in parallel. After months of stalled negotiations, the final round of nuclear talks in Geneva collapsed on February 27th. The gap was unbridgeable. Tehran demanded the removal of every U.S. and Israeli sanction and the right to retain its ballistic missile arsenal, while Washington insisted on a 90% reduction in enrichment capacity and a total ban on missile development. The State Department's counterproposal, circulated on February 20th, was met with silence. By the evening of the 27th, European mediators had left the table and the formal shutdown of diplomatic channels was announced. In Washington, a classified legal memorandum, 2026-01, was signed by the National Security Advisor in early February, granting the president authority to act under the War Powers Resolution. The memo cited a secret intelligence assessment warning of an imminent Iranian missile strike against U.S. bases in the Gulf, bypassing the need for a congressional declaration of war. News of the memo's existence leaked on February 24th, sparking heated debate on Capitol Hill, but no legislative action to block military moves. As the world watched for signs of escalation, President Trump issued a final ultimatum to Iran on February 24th, giving Tehran 72 hours to accept the U.S. terms. The deadline came and went without response. In the early hours of February 28th at 2:30 a.m. Eastern Time, Trump posted a blunt message on Truth Social. "The time for talk is over. To the people of Iran, take over your government. The world is watching." Rear Admiral Gordon had spent days preparing for this moment. Under his command, U.S. and allied forces activated a 4-layer missile defense shield. Arrow 3 batteries in Israel, Aegis-equipped destroyers at sea, PAC-3 batteries across Gulf bases, and Iron Dome systems in the UAE. Surveillance aircraft and drones orbited above, feeding real-time intelligence to a joint operations center in Bahrain. The Fifth Fleet's warships stood at high alert, their missile tubes loaded and crews at battle stations. Gordon's team rehearsed intercept drills and coordinated with Israeli and Gulf partners to ensure every sensor and interceptor was online. The collapse of talks, the legal green light, and the unmistakable military presence left little ambiguity about U.S. intentions. For Tehran, the window for negotiation had closed. For Washington, the question was no longer if, but when, to move from posturing to action. The region braced for the opening salvo, knowing that the next decision would not be made in a conference room, but in the skies over the Gulf. At 0258 UTC, the first wave of Allied munitions struck deep inside Iran. The opening targets were not random. US B-2 bombers and Israeli F-35I jets delivered precision-guided ordnance onto the perimeter of the Shahid Khomeini nuclear complex and the Supreme Leader's heavily fortified compound in Tehran. Explosions rippled across the city minutes later, lighting up the capital's skyline and sending shockwaves through the Iranian command structure. Electronic warfare aircraft, including U.S. Navy EA-6B Prowlers, jammed Iranian early warning radars just before the bombs fell. The electromagnetic assault blinded air defenses and disrupted communications across key military districts. In those first minutes, Iranian anti-aircraft batteries struggled to identify incoming threats, and command posts lost contact with distributed missile units. The strike package focused on decapitation and paralysis, not just symbolic damage. At least 3 senior IRGC generals were killed, confirmed by internal communications intercepted by Western intelligence and later leaked to independent channels. Among the dead was Brigadier General Amir Hosseini, chief of missile operations, whose command center in Karaj was reduced to rubble. The Khamenei compound itself suffered a direct hit, with satellite imagery showing collapsed roof sections and scorched courtyards by sunrise. Lieutenant General Herzi Shiloah, The Israeli Defense Forces Chief of Operations appeared on Israeli state television hours later. He described the operation as a surgical blow to the regime's nerve centers, emphasizing the joint nature of the strikes and the integration of cyber and electronic warfare. Shiloh's statement echoed the broader strategy to disrupt Iran's ability to coordinate a rapid, coherent response. As Iranian leadership scrambled to reestablish communications, the scale of the damage became clear. Command bunkers in Isfahan and missile infrastructure in Kermanshah were hit simultaneously, degrading launch readiness across multiple regions. The carefully sequenced electronic masking left Iranian commanders operating in the dark, forced onto backup radio networks and emergency protocols. Within minutes, the IRGC's encrypted Lionheart channel lit up with urgent directives: switch frequencies, prepare to fire, compensate for lost guidance. But the shock of the opening blows had already set the stage for a chaotic, fragmented retaliation, a reality Tehran's leaders could not hide from their own ranks. Just after 3:10 UTC, Iran launched its missile barrage. 31 ballistic missiles rose from Iranian soil, bound for U.S. and allied bases spread across Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan. The IRGC's plan called for a coordinated strike: Shahab-3 and Sijil medium-range missiles, Fateh 1110 short-range rockets, 4 Fatah hypersonic vehicles, and a handful of older Zulfiqar and Qadr variants. Launches came from mobile platforms in Khorasan, silos near Semnan, and bunkers along the Gulf. Satellite images captured the heat signatures and flashes as the attack began. The first wave targeted U.S. installations in Qatar and Bahrain, focusing on the Fifth Fleet's logistics hub. The next aimed for airfields in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, while 2 missiles arced toward Jordan. Iranian media called it a saturation strike, meant to overwhelm defenses by sheer volume and variety. But most missiles never made it to their targets. Guidance failures and electronic warfare quickly took their toll. 8 rockets lost GPS lock and veered off course or crashed in the desert. 2 Shahab-3s malfunctioned due to rushed repairs and worn hydraulic seals. Several Fateh 110s, stripped of satellite navigation, spiraled out of control and self-destructed. IRGC Communications recorded urgent reports of these failures within minutes of launch. Regional air defenses handled the rest. Arrow 3 batteries in Israel intercepted a Shahab-3 at high altitude. U.S. Aegis warships destroyed 3 Fateh 110s over the Gulf. Patriot batteries in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait shot down 7 short-range missiles. Iron Dome in the UAE downed 5 drones, and Jordanian forces intercepted 2 missiles near King Hussein Air Base. Only 1 missile fragment struck the Bahrain base, causing minor damage and 5 injuries. No U.S. military deaths occurred. 31 missiles launched, 0 fatalities, a barrage that landed with far less impact than promised. Arrow 3 engaged first, intercepting a Shahab-3 missile at 150 kilometers above Earth. 1 launch, 1 confirmed kill, the debris burning up harmlessly outside the atmosphere. Israeli radar tracked the missile's path from the moment of ignition, feeding data to the Joint Operations Center. The Arrow 3's exo-atmospheric strike left only a silent entry in the mission log, a testament to precision engineering and coordination. At sea, the USS Gerald R. Ford's Aegis system detected 3 Fateh 110 missiles heading for the Gulf. Standard Missile 3 interceptors launched in sequence, each destroying its target between 80 and 120 kilometers altitude. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Miller, overseeing the engagement, later described the SM-3's performance as exactly within the 200-kilometer envelope. No room for error. Patriot PAC-3 batteries in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait formed the next line of defense. 7 out of 10 incoming short-range missiles were intercepted during their terminal phase, with impacts at roughly 30 kilometers altitude. Of the 3 that slipped through, 2 were downed by Jordanian air defense, while 1 struck a U.S. logistics hub in Bahrain, causing injuries but no fatalities. Pentagon logs recorded each Patriot engagement cycle at under 6 seconds. Iron Dome systems in the UAE confronted 6 loitering drones. 5 were destroyed before reaching populated areas. The 6th crashed harmlessly in the desert. Iron Dome's rapid-fire interceptors adapted seamlessly from rockets to drones, underscoring the system's flexibility. The combined interception rate across all 4 layers reached 86%, well above NATO's 70% benchmark for 2024. Iran's prediction of overwhelming the shield failed against real-time sensor fusion and automated targeting. Lieutenant Commander Miller's after-action report noted, every layer fired within a 90-second window, there was no single point of failure. Brent crude jumped from $84 to $95 per barrel, driven by headlines and insurance risk. Shipping slowed, but no blockade followed. The price surge soon began to unwind, exposing the economic threat as more bluff than blockade. Iran's missile shield, once touted as a deterrent against any foreign attack, entered 2026 already weakened. The first cracks appeared in October 2024, when Israeli airstrikes destroyed 2 Arrow 2 batteries near Isfahan. This loss left a 200-kilometer gap in Iran's radar coverage, exposing central launch corridors to surveillance and preemptive targeting. Satellite imagery from late 2024 showed scorched earth and twisted launch rails where those batteries once stood. Within months, follow-up raids targeted S-300 sites near Kermanshah and Dezful, disabling phased array radars and leaving entire regions reliant on backup systems with slower response times. Maintenance failures compounded the damage. Internal IRGC memos leaked in December 2025 detailed a shortage of spare parts for both Russian-made S-300s and domestically upgraded Bavar 373 systems. Technicians struggled to keep aging radars operational, cannibalizing components from decommissioned launchers. By early 2026, U.S. and Israeli intelligence assessed that only 60% of Iran's long-range air defense network remained functional. The rest was a patchwork of mobile units and emergency repairs, unable to provide continuous coverage or rapid threat tracking. The consequences were immediate. Israeli F-35I jets and US B-2 bombers exploited these gaps during Operation Epic Fury, flying precision routes that skirted degraded radar zones. Electronic warfare aircraft, including US Navy EA-6B Prowlers, jammed what sensors remained, blinding command posts at critical moments. IRGC officers, forced onto alternate radio frequencies, reported delays in missile launch authorization and confusion over target data. The collapse of centralized control meant that launch crews operated on partial information, increasing the risk of misfires and failed intercepts. These vulnerabilities were not lost on Iran's adversaries. Pentagon briefings highlighted the degraded state of Iranian air defenses as a decisive factor enabling the operation's success. The technical erosion, accelerated by Israeli strikes, maintenance lapses, and logistical strain, left the missile arsenal exposed and the regime's retaliatory options severely constrained. What had been advertised as an impenetrable shield now showed clear seams, setting the stage for the internal crisis that would follow. Ali Mansouri waited in a Tehran hospital corridor at dawn, his uniform stained, his eyes fixed on the doors. His brother, a conscript, had been rushed in after the night's first barrage. By sunrise, the Ministry of Health reported more than 1,200 dead since January's protests began, a number that would only rise. Telegram channels overflowed with images of ruined homes and families searching for loved ones, while state media flickered and fell silent under cyber attack. Weeks before the bombs, the regime's hold was already slipping. Crowds surged through Shiraz and Tabriz, chanting for the end of the supreme leader's rule. Security forces fired into the crowds, but the protests swelled. Human rights monitors counted over 1,200 dead and thousands wounded by mid-February. Hospitals filled, morgues overflowed, and the sense of control evaporated. Inside the IRGC, the chain of command buckled. 3 senior generals died in the opening strikes, including Brigadier General Amir Hosseini, killed when his Karaj command center was destroyed. Orders arrived late or contradicted each other, as American cyber attacks forced officers onto backup radios. The encrypted Lionheart 2026 channel crackled with confusion. Communication blackout confirmed. Enemy cyber attack on our network. Switching to alternate frequency Zeta 3. Iran's proxies in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen suffered heavy losses. Nearly 40% of militia units lost or cut off after the first strikes. The regime's regional power fractured overnight. For commanders like Mansouri, the psychological strain matched the operational collapse. Trump's tweet, "The time for talk is over," to the people of Iran, "Take over your government, the world is watching," spread across social media, amplifying the sense of isolation. Inside Iran, exhaustion and anger replaced fear. The old assurances had vanished. Tonight, Iran's vaunted missile arsenal, once touted as untouchable, sits exposed by data, not bravado. Operation Epic Fury proved layered missile defense is no longer theory. It's deterrence in real time. As regional rivals recalibrate, the true contest now shifts to cyber domains and internal unrest. The balance of power isn't static. It's shifting, measured in capability, credibility, and the resolve to adapt. What do you think this means for the next crisis?